Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hi. We're nice and cozy at Lisa's apartment. So
We're up close and personal on
yes,
the couch.
we are. We're gonna be very close here. Hi, I'm Artemis Scantilides. I am the co-owner of Iron Body Studios. For those of you who don't know me, co-owner of Iron Body Studios in West Roxbury, Mass. And I'm the author of the blog Iron Body by Artemis, and also the creator of the Strength Workshop series, I'm Not Afraid to Lift. And I'll let Lisa introduce herself. I'm here with Dr. Lisa Lewis.
Hi, I'm Lisa. I'm a licensed psychologist and a certified drug and alcohol counselor. And my degree in psychology has a specialization in sport and exercise psychology. So I'm happy to be joining Artemis and talking about mental skills and building mental strength.
So I want to just give a little structure to how today's Q&A is going to go. Hi Tracy, how are you? We have your question. So what I'm going to do, how this is going to go is I have a few questions for Lisa just to introduce the topic of mindset. So today we're going to be talking about how to build a strong mindset when lifting weights, whether you are a beginner lifter or whether you are an advanced lifter. So I have a few questions for Lisa to speak to that. We also collected some questions as I was posting this week that we were going to have this Q&A. So I have some questions that I'll read and I'm going to have Lisa answer them, and then if I have anything to contribute, I'll contribute to that. And then at the end, I'd like to save all other questions outside of what I have here for the end. So if you have questions, please just stay tuned in, and then we will take about 10 minutes or so at the end to have people type their questions on the Periscope, and we will answer the questions then. So if you have any questions, please just hang on to them until the end, and we'll just answer them all at once at the end. Moi, j'ai des questions. I speak French, though. Je parle français, so I understand that.
Wow. I don't.
But okay, but please just hang on to your questions, and we will answer them at the end. So great. So just to get started here, so Lisa will be, I just want to give her a little bit more of an introduction. She will be co-presenting with me at my workshop, I'm Not Afraid to Lift, here in Boston on November 7th at Iron Body Studios. And she will, I'm really excited to partner with her because one of the things I do talk about at the lift workshop is mindset. It's, it's the name of the workshop is, the title of the workshop is I'm Not Afraid to Lift. So it's all about not just learning the movements and just physically learning the movements and becoming not afraid because you have knowledge in that way, but also just the mental aspect of lifting. So I'm really excited to partner with Lisa and have her co-present with me because she can just really take learning about how to build a strong mindset to a whole other level. So I thought this Q&A would be a really great way to introduce that level of depth that we're going to get into at the workshop through this Periscope Q&A. So a little while ago, Lisa wrote a guest blog post for me about finding your flow with metacognition. And I don't know if anyone had a chance to read that. If you didn't, please go ahead and go to my website and look for it. It's called Finding Your Flow with Metacognition. And so to that point, to the point of that blog, people hear all the time that they should have those positive thoughts, that positive self-talk, right? We know this, right? But what does this mean, and how do people get there, and how do they get to the point where they can really eliminate the negative, and then how can they become more aware of how they are speaking to themselves? And if you can define, because that's what metacognition means, right? Okay, so just if you can speak to what is metacognition, and then also to those points too.
Sure.
Yeah.
So self-talk is something that's happening all the time, whether you're aware of it or not, and there's layers to it. So we could be thinking about multiple things at the same time. As you probably know, if you're a multitasker, you can be having one thought about a task that you're actively engaged in. You can be thinking about errands that you need to run. You could be thinking about an email or a text message or a relationship. So you are communicating with yourself about multiple things. And at all times, you're thinking about things you have to do, but you're also making appraisals. So we are creatures who are constantly taking in information from the environment, making appraisals about what it is that's going on, and then deciding how to act. So self-talk is really that kind of feedback loop of taking in appraisals from the environment, deciding what that means, and then what to do about it. So when people are talking to themselves, one way that I like to help people think about that and get them to think about their thinking is to imagine themselves as a cartoon character that might have one of those little bubbles over their head with a running ticker of thoughts that go on. And it really can be a mishmash of things. So you could have 3 thoughts in a row about what you're doing and then have this random thought like, I need to get a haircut, or I really need to, I don't know, change the towels in the bathroom, something like that.
That happens when I go to yoga. I just think about so many other things. It's really bad. Anyway.
Yeah, but it's very natural. And if you've ever been to yoga, you know that you're cued to think about your thinking. And one of the cues that I also use that's popular in yoga is if you notice your mind wandering, it's okay. You can just notice that and then let it go and come back to where you are. And so when we talk about developing stronger self-talk or positive self-talk, it really is first kind of taking an inventory and just notice what's going on. What is the climate?
What are you thinking about?
Yes.
Okay.
What is
I like
the
that.
climate
Taking
of
an
your
inventory.
self-talk? Yeah. So just kind of listen to it for a few minutes. So I work with some people who are athletes, and you know, most athletes, whether they're going to the gym or engaged in a sport, have some kind of physical preparation they do before a performance. And so we talk about how can you create mental preparation as well. And it really begins with taking inventory. Where am I at in my head today? What are the main things I want to be thinking about, and then what's kind of on the periphery? Can I let any of those things go? And then how can I really get myself ready to be getting in the zone, which I think we'll talk about in a little bit, but really to be focused on the present moment.
And is there some acceptance? Because I know sometimes if people are taking that inventory, we're hard on ourselves as humans, and you know that can interfere with mindset too. And sitting down, if we take inventory of what we're thinking about, and this is maybe getting a little bit too deep, but just maybe beating ourselves up a little bit that we're having all of these thoughts, and we know that we shouldn't be thinking about this, this, and this. And so is there some element of also just forgiving ourselves for maybe having some of those thoughts and just to help us get rid of them?
That's like the Zen master mentality, right? Is that you don't get attached to any of these appraisals that you're making. So we have thoughts, and then we might appraise them like, oh, there I go again. I'm thinking about something I shouldn't be thinking about. But that's natural. So if you can shift yourself from making the appraisal of whether or not you should or shouldn't be doing that, and just think to yourself, well, there they are, and I don't really need those right now. I can get back to what I'm doing. It's like a practice. And the more people practice coming back into the present moment and focusing their thoughts to a choice, their thoughts of choice, the better they get at it. So it's almost like a physical skill. The more that you practice it, the more repetition you have, the better you get at bringing yourself back to center.
That's really cool. I like that. So to this point, we have a question from Tracy Cook, and she attended my Lift workshop last weekend in Virginia. So I'm going to read the whole question because I think it's helpful to hear everything. So Tracy's question is, I did not fully realize the power of the mind in regards to my training until I started training with heavy weights, which is true. You need to have a strong mind when you're lifting heavy weights. I have dealt with several lengthy plateaus in my progressions that were mostly due to mental blocks. A good example is with my barbell back squat. I would have no issue up to a certain weight, but once I hit a certain weight, I would struggle with hitting depth and being able to successfully complete the lift. I would try to go into the lift telling myself that I could do this, but that little voice in the back of my head would tell me that I had failed before and that I would fail. Once I got past that mental block and truly believed that I could do it, then I had no issue. I have dealt with similar issues with other lifts and exercises as well. I understand how important it is to go into a lift fully knowing that you can do the lift. But what if you tell yourself that you can focus on truly believing that you can, but that little voice in the back of your head continues to tell you otherwise? How do you get rid of the doubt and convince your mind that you can, in fact, do something? So I'm going to have Lisa answer that.
I love this question, Tracy, and I think it's really kind of a higher level question, because it sounds like you already understand that you need to be fully present, thinking positive thoughts, have a belief in yourself, kind of remembering previous experiences and knowing I did it before, I can do it again. And you refer a few times to that little voice in the back of your head. So there's a voice up front and there's a voice in the back. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like that voice builds some anxiety and some doubt. And the thing about anxiety, when people feel nervous about something, what we tend to want to do is avoid it, get away from it. And those of us who like to strength train or like to kind of get after something, sometimes what we do is push ourselves harder to get away from what is anxiety provoking. So for example, Tracy, I don't know if this is true, but maybe you're doing something like, I know I can do it, I know I can do it, and trying to get the voice up front to cover up the little voice in the back. And I'm kind of wondering about that little voice. Where is that coming from? Did you do a lift 30 times and miss the lift once and be successful 29 times, and that one little time is taking over? Unfortunately, that's kind of how our brains are designed, that the negative experiences are much more sticky than the positive experiences. And so what you'll need to do is repeat the positive experience over and over and over again, so that the ratio gets so big that it means almost nothing. But sometimes people describe this, I call it the princess and the pea thought. If you're ever familiar with that fairy tale, it's like way underneath all this experience and all this knowledge that you have and all this confidence, there's this little teeny nugget that can interfere with performance. And so you might want to think about, where's that coming from? You know, where am I getting that from? And is that really real? So sometimes when we talk about cognition, there's this idea of arbitrary inference. So if you had one day where you were tired and dehydrated and in a bad mood and you missed a lift, are you basing your idea, your hypothesis that you're going to fail on that one little piece of data? And if you are, maybe you can reconsider it and throw out the hypothesis with all these other examples of times that you've been successful.
Yeah. And this, you know, and Tracy, this reminds me of when I was training for the Iron Maiden Challenge and the first time around, and I was trying to get my press, and in training I came in and I would have so many failed attempts with pressing. I constantly was training to failure with pressing, and so when I went in to go and attempt the Iron Maiden Challenge for the first time, I failed the press, and it was very self-defeating. Even before I attempted it for the first time in my training, I would come in and it would be a press day, and I'd have this anxiety that would build because I had had all these negative experiences around pressing, and that's all I had built was just negative experiences over and over and over again. And so when I came back and after that first attempt to train for the Iron Maiden Challenge again, I had to take a step back from my pressing and start all over again by building positive experiences and not letting myself have any negative experiences, and very limited to no negative thoughts around kettlebell pressing, so that it wouldn't take away from what I was rebuilding. So that, I don't know, this just, your question just kind of reminds me about that a little bit, because I just remember every time I went to go press, like, that's what I would think about. I would just think about those negative experiences that I would have, and, oh, am I going to be able to press this bell today? I don't know. And yeah, it's the mind is very powerful, you know, even if it is, like you said, just like one instance, you know. Yeah.
And I think the other component of this is if there's a part of you that's saying, I can do this, and there's a part of you that's saying, I can't do this, I'm going to fail, all those thoughts are focused on the outcome as opposed to the process and the task. And when we talk to very successful athletes or successful musicians, successful performers, when they're in the zone and they're performing their best, what they describe as being focused on the task. So as opposed to thinking, can I do this? Can I not do this? Am I going to be successful or am I going to fail? The thought is about setting up and posturing and breathing and the execution of the skill, which takes all that guesswork completely out of the picture about whether or not you're going to be successful.
Which actually, so Lisa just mentioned the zone, which brings us to our next point here. So my question for Lisa is, people hear about being in the zone all the time in training and sport and competition. And some people know what this is, but others may think that it's something that's made up, right? It's just, people are just like, what is this zone thing, right? But we learned from your guest post that the zone is actually a real phenomenon. It's something that actually really happens, that we have this happening. So can you talk more about what that is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and this kind of experience is something that many people with athletic backgrounds or musical backgrounds are able to describe themselves. It was one of the initial kind of focal points in the scientific study of sports psychology. So there's a lot of literature about it. Sometimes you hear it described as peak performance, optimal performance. My favorite theory about it is described as flow. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi is an author who's written a lot about it and studied a lot of different experts in various fields. And overall, what is described as being a flow state or peak performance is being in a state where time seems to slow down, where external stimuli don't interfere at all. What people describe is feeling like there's nothing else going on in the universe except for exactly what they're doing. There's 100% confidence. Nothing's floating in and out of their mind. It's almost like an empty space, or some people describe like, I can't hear the crowd screaming anymore. It seems like time is standing still. It has kind of a surreal effect. But this is really where challenge meets skill, where the individual feels like, I'm doing something that is hard for me, but I'm able to do it. And actually, one of the reasons that this has been studied so much in the last few decades is because it's highly congruent with happiness. So people enjoy getting in the zone and doing things that are challenging, that they can gain mastery over and get better at. So it's actually a wonderful place to be, not only to perform well, but also to enjoy your life and the goals you're pursuing.
Does it build happiness because it helps to build self-efficacy? Like it helps to build those positive experiences and confidence and yeah.
This is kind of a theoretical question, so I love it. But there's a lot of theories out there that believe that human beings are goal-directed, that we're animals that like to gain mastery over our environment. So, for example, people who like Sudoku puzzles, or they like cooking or knitting or weightlifting, or, why do we like to engage in behaviors where there's no monetary outcome or there's no secondary gain? It's because we like to improve ourselves and get better. So, the idea behind that being, when we are engaged in activities that we can gain mastery over, that we can grow from, we're going to find happiness. And actually, some things that people equate with happiness, like chilling out on the couch or having downtime where you're doing nothing, is actually not correlated with happiness.
That's interesting. That's really cool. Well, to this point of the zone, we have a question here from Catherine Marvel. Catherine, she attended my workshop, I'm Not Afraid to Lift, it was in Boston last November, 2014. And I also had the opportunity to work with Catherine a little bit through distance coaching, which was fun. And I love Catherine's last name because it sounds like a superhero, Marvel. So Catherine's question here, she asks, daily mindset is one thing. Mindset for one particular lift or move is another. With the TSC, which is the Tactical Strength Challenge, this is a challenge that there's an organization called Strong First. They have a challenge that they do twice a year. So with the TSC approaching, I'm wondering, how do superheroes like you get your mental game for, say, a maximum number of tactical pull-ups or a max deadlift? So I'm going to have Lisa just start to answer that question, and she has some general answers, and then we'll speak individually to what we do personally.
So I think this question is about how to get into a flow state intentionally for really high-level performance. So I'm guessing if you're somebody who's competing at this level or incurring this kind of a stressful event, that there's a whole process or a whole ritual that you engage in before a competition. And so what I would recommend is that you add a complement of mental preparation to any physical preparation. that you do. So for example, right now I have a client who's a competitive athlete, and she talks about preparing the physical space when she comes into it, and she prepares her mental space as well. And some of that might include using positive self-talk. So for example, at the I'm Not Afraid to Lift workshop that we're going to do next month, we're going to use an exercise called scripting, where we intentionally have people write down some positive self-talk that is grounded in a previous optimal experience that's really personal to them, that they can repeat or state to themselves as they're preparing to execute an exercise, or as they are doing an exercise. And the idea behind that is you've had previous successful experiences where you've been in the zone. So by repeating those sentences or phrases, or bringing your mind back to a successful performance, you are creating a mental environment where you can repeat that performance again. So I would encourage this person, or anybody else who's getting ready for a high-level performance, to try to create that same mental environment that you had during a previous optimal experience.
That's really, really cool. And for you personally, what do you specifically, what is your routine?
Yeah. So I was a volleyball player in college, and I felt very privileged to be able to play. I had an experience in high school where I was on a very competitive team with a lot of really excellent athletes, and kind of taken aside by a coach. And he kind of said to me, I don't think you have a future in the sport. I think you should stick with soccer. You could probably get a scholarship in that. And it really was a pivotal moment in my life, and I really got focused on getting better and pushing really hard in training, strength training, and I ended up having a fabulous experience in college. And I think thinking about those games and those performances, or those years of trying to prove myself, I think senior year was one of those years where I went from being told I really wouldn't be contributing to the team to being the captain and being a major player on the team. That thinking about those things of being able to disprove beliefs, or being able to change myself, being able to be competitive even when people in authority don't think I am. For some reason, those jazz me up. So I drive to the gym at like 5:55 in the morning, and I think about those times. I think about times when I had a really fabulous game, or where I just was making gains and feeling so much stronger with all the hard work I was putting in. And just bringing back those times, or like happy experiences from the team that I was playing with, really get me in a place where I feel enthusiastic, where I feel ambitious about myself. It's almost kind of romantic in a way, that you're reminding yourself of a story of a time that was really exciting and meaningful for you.
Yep, definitely. I can identify with that. For me personally, I visualize success with what I'm about to do. And so I would say, the day before the event, whatever it is, I have that visualization of going through the lifts. Or I remember for my black belt test, it was just kind of going in my mind through some of the forms I was going to do, and going through them successfully. Like, just always saying I've done this in training, and making sure that I've got, I'm going through it successfully in my mind, and really visualizing accomplishing the goal that's about to happen. So there's a combination of that, the day before, as well as finding an activity that helps me to keep my mind off of what I'm about to do. So setting aside a certain amount of time to have that visualization, and that positive visualization, but then also saying, okay, well, that's enough, and now I'm just going to relax my brain, and I'm going to go to dinner with my boyfriend, or I'm going to go do something else to help me tune out from what I'm going to do the next day, so that I'm not obsessing about it or too focused on it. And then going into the challenge, when I go into it, it's, so to answer, I think just to speak to Catherine's question about pull-ups, if I was going to approach, trying to hit a certain number of pull-ups for something like the TSE, I would have that number in mind when I went in that day. and I would say, okay, this is the number I want. And and that's all I would focus on. I would, like, when I get to the bar, as I approach the bar, I would just be like, this number, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And positive self-talk, like, this is the number I want, and I'm going to hit this number. And then just get after it as soon as my hands hit the bar. As soon as they're on the bar, just, like, get after it and just do it and push it and push it and push it and push it. And only focus on that number and the pull-up. Just the pull-up and the number. That's it. And it's definitely about blocking, getting into your zone, like knowing how to get into your zone to block out what's around you, because that's just going to detract from your focus and take away from being able to reach your goal on the pull-up bar. So hopefully that answers your questions, Catherine and Tracy. I just have a couple more things I want to speak to, and I would say that these topics and questions are a little bit more related to if you're new to lifting. So one question is, what are some strategies if you're new to lifting? What are some strategies from logistics to mindset that can help you as a beginner lifter, as a new lifter, to be brave when lifting? And to be brave when lifting, and I think I'll just pair it with this other question too, to be brave when lifting, and also to, if you're just getting started with a lifting program, to have the motivation for sticking with it, even when it's hard or scary.
I love this question, and congratulations to you, first of all, for even trying to build a new habit and start weight training. I think it's going to change your life. And what you want to do is you want to start with the goal that you're able to achieve so that you can move forward from there. So often what we hear people say when they want to change any behavior is they want to swing for the fence. In other words, they want to lose a large amount of weight, or they want to change from never going to the gym and being intimidated by the gym to going 6 days a week and having a different workout 3 of those days. And that is setting the bar really high, because as we know, when people start to fail a little bit, then they fail a lot. So if they miss one day at the gym, then their self-talk changes and they start to say, I'm not going to do it, I'm lazy, I'm a failure, and then they won't go the next day and the next day and the next day. So the first thing I would recommend to this person is not to set themselves up for failure, but to set it up so that there is 100% chance of success. Even if that means that the bar seems low to you, set it there, because what you want to do is be able to achieve those goals. That's going to build efficacy. It's going to build your understanding that you're capable of going to the gym and doing workouts, and then you can build from there. So for example, think about your work schedule, think about how much effort and willpower it's going to take you to get in your outfit and go to the gym. If it's a place that you're intimidated by. All of that requires your energy. So if you think you can do that twice a week, but 4 times a week, you might get tired by the time it's Friday and say, forget it, I don't want to do it, I've already been 3 times, then shoot for twice a week. When you get to the gym, what are the things that you feel competent doing, and what are the things you feel incompetent doing? So one thing we know about anxiety is when somebody's feeling anxious, they're less likely to approach things that they feel incompetent about. Things that will get their anxiety down is by doing stuff they feel they know how to do. So if we can demonstrate competence, it helps us to feel more comfortable. So if there's 1 or 2 or 3 exercises that you know that you can do and you can do well, I want you to start by doing those first, or just focusing on those the few days that you're going to the gym. I would also encourage you to have a trainer give you a tour, so that you're walking around with somebody, getting exposure to all the equipment. Some people describe having anxiety like walking into the free weight room and not knowing where to put themselves, or approaching a piece of equipment that they've never touched before, and fearfulness about other people observing them, and thinking that they don't know what they're doing. So anything you can do to help yourself feel more familiar and comfortable in your environment is going to be really helpful. And once you're engaged in a consistent pattern of behavior, you're going to feel great about it. You're going to feel like, well, I can do twice a week, and I've been doing it for a month. So then maybe you can add another day on that you're going to the gym, or you can add doing an exercise at the end of your workout that's newer to you, because you've already been in there for 30 or 45 minutes and you're feeling more comfortable in the environment, or you notice nobody's looking at you, everybody's doing their own thing, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. And then to that point is, now there are a lot of small training gyms as opposed to commercial gyms. So I think that, that's something that really, there wasn't a lot of small training gyms around, I don't know, maybe even like 6 years ago. And now that's becoming more common, and I think that's really helpful. If you're intimidated walking into a commercial gym, seek out a training gym, a small training gym. They're everywhere now, and you're going to get that specialized coaching in a small group so it's not going to be an intimidating space. It's not going to be an intimidating crowd you're going to be working with. You'll actually end up building some community with the coaches and the people who go to the gym, and it'll motivate you to want to continue to come back, and that's going to help you to get over that fear too. And then one of the things before we got on the call here, got on the Periscope here, Lisa and I were talking about the importance of frequency and repetition with, as Lisa was saying, with those movements that you do know. So going in and just making sure that, yes, you're going in, you're doing movements that you feel comfortable doing, that you know, and then just like the frequency that you're doing them, and just making sure it's a frequency that you know that you can stick to. But then how repetition is key. Just even though you might be doing the same routine over and over again for weeks, you need to do that in the beginning in order to feel comfortable and build that confidence and build that self-efficacy. So repetition is really huge. And even as an advanced lifter, repetition is also very important when it comes to progress and feeling confident. So, which actually leads me to just one more thing on this. And just whether you are a beginner lifter or an advanced lifter, we all have our battles with mindset. So just because you're a beginner lifter, definitely don't think that the rest of us who maybe have come in and have had more mastery experiences and have been doing this for years, definitely don't think that we don't have our challenges. It might be at a little bit of a different level, but we do have our challenges, and we do have our days where we have self-doubt. We have our days and our lifts that make us feel intimidated, and we need to build confidence, and we need to have repetition as well. So it doesn't matter whether you've been just starting out or you've been doing this for a while. It's okay to feel that way. It's okay to have those challenges. It makes us human, and it's just, I think one of the differences might be as an advanced lifter that you might be able to figure out how to get past that hump a little bit better on your own without anyone else helping you or seeking out learning about strategies. But I mean, it applies to everyone, no matter what level you're at. So.
And the thing I would add to that too, I think folks who've been at it longer and have more expertise, they typically have a little more enjoyment of doing something. So if you're a brand new beginner, it might not feel fabulous, right at the beginning. Yeah. So you don't really get that reward right away. Whereas people who've been at it for a long time, even though there's difficult parts of it, they know, it's easier for them to continue in the habit because they know about the reward, and they remember all the great things that they've experienced in the past.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Yeah, because when you're new to it, you're coming in and you're just like, you kind of feel like you're jumping without a parachute, and then you just keep coming back and waiting for it to like feel a little bit better and feel a little bit easier. And so it's just, making sure that you stick with it and just having that mental toughness a little bit to keep coming back, because all of a sudden one day you're just going to have this great experience in training, and you'll have that reward that will be the answer to one of the answers to why you're doing what you're doing. Like, oh yes, this feels great. And that was just, that was a huge confidence builder for me. So yeah, definitely. So now do you have anything else to add to any of that? Before we take questions?
I don't think so. I'm really curious to see if anybody has any questions they want to ask us.
So for those of you who are still tuning in, do you have any questions for us in addition to the items that we talked about? If you do, just go ahead and type them on the Periscope. If you don't, it's okay. If there are no questions, we'll wrap it up. We won't be hurt. We won't take it personally. So Lisa's cat is sleeping.
She needed to be close to us and then go right to sleep.
All right. So, well, thank you very much. We'll wrap it up since there are no questions here. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And I hope if you are in the Boston area or nearby, I hope that you'll join Lisa and I on, I hope you'll join Lisa and I. It was great. Who was that? Glad you enjoyed it. Good. You're very, very welcome. I hope you'll join us for I'm Not Afraid to Lift on November 7th.
Yes.
If you plan on coming, the early bird ends this Sunday, October 11th. We only have 7 spots left. So if you plan on coming, register you have until midnight on Sunday to register. And then there's also the half day on Sunday, November 8th, which is a half day of nutrition and conditioning. The first half of the day will be nutrition. The second half of the day will be all kettlebell conditioning. We'll do everything from all kettlebell swing variations to the kettlebell snatch to kettlebell complexes, kettlebell chains. So we'll be doing that on Sunday, November 8th. And the early bird for that also ends at midnight on Sunday the 11th. So I really hope that you will join us. It's okay. How do you know if your thoughts are true before we sign off? If they're true.
How do you know if your thoughts are true?
Like if you're not making them up?
Well, one of the good things about the human brain is that we have different sets of software. So we have a cognitive brain. It's the most evolved part of our brain. It's up here in your frontal cortex. And that's where you do your executive functioning. So you're thinking about things and you're thinking about your thinking with your very human evolved brain. And then we have an emotional brain. It's our limbic system. It's way older. Sometimes you hear it called the reptilian brain. And that's where we get emotional information from, reactivity. So
maybe speaking to reactivity versus...
Yeah, so I think if you have a thought and it's true, you're going to get emotional information about that. And if you have a thought and it's not true, you're probably going to get some emotional information about that. When things resonate with us, when we hear something that feels right, there's typically an emotional reaction to that. And some of us are more tuned in emotionally than others, but that's such an interesting question. There must be something very specific in mind there. What I would ask you is, how do you feel when you think it? What does it resonate with you? Does it seem organic to you? Does it bring up good feelings or negative feelings? Did someone else tell you that and you absorbed it? Or is that coming from within?
Yeah, that's a really good question. How does this relate to anxiety around food?
Ooh. That's a whole nother show.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah, we'll have to do another Periscope on that because we were just trying to stick to lifting and strength training. But I'm going to write that down and we will do another Periscope on that for sure. I love it. That's a whole other show. It really is though, because there's so much to speak to that.
Yes.
So so we'll definitely do another one related to that. I think that would be great. Well, thank you so much.
Yes.
And if you're in the Boston or surrounding areas, please join us on November 7th. We are going to have an awesome time.
Absolutely.
So it's going to be great. So thank you and have a great night. Have a great weekend. And we will see you all very soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.